Welcome
Got it.
everyone to I Love Tools Fall 2023. I'm pretty sure it's 23, correct, everyone? I did. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yay, yay for 23. I'm so excited you're all here. Let me tell you a little bit before we officially start. Um, I Love Tools started, I think, with Patrick with his book launch a billion years ago. And we realized there were so many fun things out there to share with fellow crafters and fellow makers and artists. And I was inspired by Carol Duvall, who passed away recently in her 90s, because I would love when she would start her show and talk about, like on Thursdays, new products and new things out there. There was no other way to find out about them. So that was the inspiration for starting I Love Tools as a free way to come on and learn about all kinds of stuff. And we have continued all these years later. And I have this group of people I adore who come on. And let me just introduce them before we start. Mags Bonham, you can raise your hi.
Hi,
Julia
everyone.
Ray, there's Miss Julia
Hello.
Ray. Pam East, who's on a plane right now, but she pre-recorded when we were going to hear what she has to say. Patrick Cusick right there in his disco room. Cindy Pope, who has been a doll to wake up early. And Miss Sean Hamilton also coming on from the UK.
Oh,
So they're going to show you things that'll blow your mind that you'll want to learn. And let me just move forward on this video slightly. And you should all be seeing the video right now, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good.
yep.
Write that down. I Love Tools. You'll get 20% off. You're going to want to buy classes at Craftcast. I'm just warning you. It's just the way it goes because they're so cool. There's other things in the handout that's in the chat box right there that you'll want to grab to look at, which list everything we're talking about today. So you don't have to worry about grabbing links from the chat box. You can take that right there. There'll also be a recording of this. You'll get an email if you want to rewatch or you have to leave early. So you'll get an email that'll give you that link. If you got, I'd love to know, let me do a quick little survey here. Who got today's link through buying it for free at Craftcast? And who got it just as a direct Zoom link? Either put in Zoom or website so I know, because I would love to know how that occurred. Because we're trying website. Interesting. All right, direct link. All right. Looks like website is still winning a little bit there. Yeah, it is. Okay, thank you guys. Everyone who got it directly through the website, thank you for putting that all in there. It'll be in your library automatically. If you got a direct link, you'll get an email on how to watch it on the YouTube channel, or you can put it in your library. It's just, I'm trying to get just the word out to everyone. So that's what we're doing. Make sure you go over to Craftcast and check out the new classes. You're going to love what's coming up. I think I have a picture next of some of the new ones. Let me move forward a little bit. We have so many new ones coming, and new ones are being put in every day. There's some that are already up. I mean, they're all fantastic. Those are 3 metal clay and a photo class. Uh, and they're great, is all I can say. I'm overwhelmed with how wonderful they are. I've had a sneak peek on all of them. If you want to shoot better pictures, definitely sign up for Pam E's class coming up. She gives you some hints you're not going to believe. First class is coming up soon on the 18th with Grona Reynolds. I love those acorn charms and the little oak leaves. Love, love, love those. We have coming up early November. Stephanie will be doing, we're calling them alluring landscapes because alluring vistas. And she's showing how to use crushed stone and all kinds of fun things. Fiona's going to be showing in December how to do really lightweight on bisque pendants and adding metal clay toppings. There's more stuff coming that's already in there. Check out all of our live classes coming up. All right, so now let's going for today. I'm going to introduce our first brave person to come on today, Mags, who I adore. Mags has lots of fantastic classes over at Craftcast. But today she said she would show us this, which is a tool. I'm going to let her, you're going to tell us all about it because it's really cool. And
Yep.
everyone who sees it wants one. So Mags,
Yep.
tell us about it. I'll start your video.
Yeah, so let's hold on the canes for a minute because we're gonna have some bonus cane stuff too. So people who are starting out or who don't do a lot of canes typically don't want to spend a lot of money on a professional slicer because they can be pretty expensive. Some of them are like 200 or 400 or 800. So over the years, I've tried to find ways to do inexpensive slicers. So you can go to the next one. So first I came up with the Lego slicer, and that was in that quilt cane class that we did. And there's also a free video on Craftcast on how I use it. And that worked out for me for quite a while because it was just easy to do, not very expensive, and it did what I needed it to do.
Let's tell everyone for a second, people who are new to polymer clay, building canes, which is really fun. We have lots of classes on how to make those patterns in canes. But what Mags is talking about is you want to cut them very thin to use as veneers, correct,
Correct.
Mags? Okay,
Or you want to cut them thicker, but you want all of the slices to be the
be
same
exactly same.
thickness. And
Got it.
so that it's the same thickness all the way down as well. Because if you are not using a slicer and you're just using your hands, you may tilt it a little bit and one side is thick and the other one is thin.
Got it. Okay.
So that's that one that I've come up with. And there's a kit on my Etsy site if you want to make that one. But the next one that we've come up with,
I love that that's first of all with Legos.
I know, right? Well, those are actually even cheapo dollar store Legos. So
Okay,
even
so
better.
that's the one that you've made.
That's the one that I've made.
Okay. All right. And then there's
So
also some,
so now hold on for there for a
okay.
second. So a friend of mine who always used to do the Donna Cato Marksit tool, and you're going to see that in a second. It's not being made anymore. And I was working on coming up with a slicer myself. And she said, you know what I would love? I would just love something that's like the old Marksit tool. So I have come up with these measure sticks. I'm using my laser, and I'm engraving away design lucite so that you get these little ridges. So we can go on now.
Wait, let me be clear now. So the ridges are,
They're going to
don't,
mark the cane in equal distances apart from each other.
so you could use this not just with polymer clay, is my point.
You
You
can
want to
use
mark
this with
anything equally.
anything. You
Okay.
can use this with metal clay. You can
Right.
use it with pottery clay. You could
Right.
use this with anything.
You want to mark something. This is a way to go, which
Right.
that makes sense. Okay. So we got our markers.
And I've made them, they flip over. So you get one on each side, and we start with
Oh,
1 millimeter and we go up to 5.5 millimeter. They're available as a 3-piece set, a 5-piece set, or you can just buy the ones that you need to
you know
do
what?
that.
I just thought of something because, of course, this is how my brain works. Is you could make your roll of cookie dough and mark your cookie dough and get them in back.
Yes, absolutely. There are
I like that. Yeah.
all kinds of ways to use it.
Okay, like that. All right,
Right.
moving on. Now
So
you're
now
going
I
to
think we're
show
going to do
us.
a video and show you what I'm doing. So that was the old Marksit tool. And I had one, I used it. I had an issue with how thick the ridges were because it left quite a bit of a space when you mark it, which you're going to see in a second. And you'd have to do something with it because the blade is so thin that it sits in between that thick little channel. And so you still have to do something with the edge of the cane slice to get that extra stuff away. So I worked on this until I could get those lines as thin as possible without them becoming too fragile so that you couldn't use them. And in a minute, we'll see the comparison of the two. And you can see I'm flipping them over to show you that there's one on each side. And it's not like 1 to 1.5 on the same one. They have to be mixed up because if you did 1 and 1.5 on the same thing, they would be too brittle to use.
Got
So
it.
they're all kind of mixed up. And if you go to the Etsy site, you'll see what's on what. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the marking tool, and I'm going to mark that other piece of clay to show you the difference in the line. And hopefully you can see this on the video. I think once we get focused, you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Focus.
Yeah.
So you can see it's much thinner.
Yep. Yep.
And it doesn't really leave any excess on the cane slice that you really have to work with too hard. Now, when you get them, I do a lot of work on them with brushes and wires and all that kind of stuff to get all of the engraving stuff out, but there's still going to be a little bit in there. And so I suggest you take a piece of scrap clay and you just kind of keep on hitting it on the in the grooves so that it pulls all that
Oh, to
stuff
clean
off.
it all off.
To
Okay.
clean it all off, and especially after you've used it on one color. So here we're going to take this cane and we're going to mark it. And it doesn't really take a lot of pressure to get the lines on there, as long as you're, you know, looking at it close. And the key to getting a good slice is you want to hold that blade as close to the middle as possible so that it doesn't torque as you go through the cane.
Mm.
You want a stiff blade and you want to hold it close to the cane to get those slices. And you'll see that's a pretty nice slice.
Pretty.
So this is if you're comfortable taking the slices with your hand and not needing something to stabilize the blade more. So it's not going to replace a big expensive slicer, but it's definitely going to give you some tools to play with. And then the other thing you can do is you can take one of the larger sizes and you can mark the clay and cut it so that you get exactly the same amount of clay in each bead that you want to make. So I'm going to cut off the part that's not a full piece, and then you'll see me roll it together in my hand. Cindy, I know it looks like I'm tipping that blade before me. It's the angle of the camera that makes it look like it's doing that. What I typically do is I do hold the blade at an angle, and then I'm looking at the line and I'm bringing the blade down to that line. It just helps me see it better if it's kind of back a little bit, but I am going straight down with this once I cut it. And Robin, I haven't used a cheese cutter. I know some people do, and I did a long time ago, but I also find that those tend to torque with the cane, so you don't get the even slices. I know there's some now that are more like guillotines. Haven't played with that yet. So now I'm going to show you a little tip for round canes or oval canes. And this is a tip that the late, great Judy Belcher shared with a lot of us many years ago. So I'm going to take a piece of scrap clay and I'm going to use that knitting needle to press in a channel that's going to fit the size of the cane that I want to cut. So I put a little bit of water in there. I don't want too much. And if you're using Fimo, you don't want to use water. You need to use cornstarch or something. And so I'm going to mark it now. And what it's going to do is, as you bring your blade down, you're putting pressure on your cane. And if it's round, it's going to bottom out on you. Okay, so that you get a flat side, and you're going to have to keep on rotating the round cane to get rid of that flat side. If you use the cradle like this, what is happening is the cradle is flattening out, but the cane isn't.
That is a great tip.
Isn't that a great tip? Judy
Yeah.
So smart.
that was the
Very, very
smartest thing
smart.
I've ever heard from Judy. Not well, Judy had great ideas, but this is the one I use every day. So, and this will work with any sign. You're going to see a leaf cane there in a minute. Oval, anything, just you want to get that cradle to fit, support the cane, and it's going to give you great slices.
Yeah. So easy, and yet it takes the brain thinking to come up with it.
Yeah, yeah. So here you're going to see that they're all pretty close together in terms of size and thickness, and they didn't bottom out. Okay, so I'm just showing the up close the impressions. So hold here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So what's great, however, is my friend Kathy Doomer came up with this Click-a-Slice tool. Now, many, many years ago, Kathy and Valerie Wright came up with a slicer that was fairly inexpensive. They called it Precise a Slice. I had one, I loved it, but I had some issues with being able to read the lines on the step out that you would use as your guide to cut. It was on the base. And as my eyes got older, it became more of a problem. What Kathy has done is she has created a slicer using those notches on the base that are going to give you probably one of the closest movements of any slicer, no matter how expensive it is. So if you want to start the video.
Let me take one question
Yeah.
here, though. Someone
Mhm.
asked a ways back if you're selling, does Etsy handle sending to the UK? Forget who asked that in here.
It doesn't, but if you will email me, through the, I think we have my email on the link there, or Misty will send it
Yep,
to
support
me.
it, support at craftcast.com. Just email us. We'll make sure Mag
Yeah.
gets it.
And then I'll open it up for you, but I don't in general, because there have been some real issues with Royal Mail lately from the US. So, but I'll do, if you're,
Okay.
if you are in the UK, you want to buy, go ahead. And I believe that Kathy sends everywhere. So
Okay.
that's not an issue.
All right. So I love that what she's cutting is beautiful.
Oh, isn't that gorgeous? So there you see it. It's, she 3D prints them. You've got the knob on the side with the little clicky thing there. That gives you a 0.5 every time you click it. It's 0.5 of a millimeter anytime you click it.
Mag, she did a great job 3D printing. Is she doing the printing herself too?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow,
She's
that's
doing
amazing.
it's amazing. She's done a unbelievable job on this. I just, the minute I saw that she did this, all of
Yeah,
the thoughts of me making a slicer went out the window, because this was perfect.
And who's just asking, how
How
does she make
larger
larger
sizes?
Yeah.
So I would say that that is probably about 4 inches tall. So you could probably do anything under like 375 inches tall. You should be able to slice.
That, I'm impressed she did. All right, so now we have a little video here.
So now we have a little video. So, and it's great. It comes in this box that you can keep for shipping. And it stores its little extras in there. So what happens is you want to hold back that mechanism there to move it so that you don't have to click, 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 click. So it's going to release the thing, and you can use the twist tube, and it's not going to be clicking all the time. So I'm going to take that out of there. And in there, you're going to get your little mat that's going to keep it from slipping. And that's one of those ones that you can wipe it with water or soap and it'll rejuvenate it. You have your blade mechanism. You get an extra blade. And that little screw that I'm looking at, that actually comes inside. It screws inside where I'm showing you right now. That's a stabilizer for the base if you need it. I'm sure that over time things may loosen up a little bit, and that will help you get any jittering that's going on with the base taken care of.
And she made it a beautiful ombre color.
Yes, she did that for me.
Oh my gosh.
But she does have a lot of pretty colors. And that's a piece of lucite that's been cut. So here you're going to see me with another cradle. So I'm sticking that down to the lucite. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there, and you'll see me wipe away most of it, because you don't want it too wet or else the cane will go sliding all over the place. And we're going to use that leaf cane that I showed earlier. Press that down. You want everything stuck. Now I'm going to hold the little, this is a little tricky to do, but you hold that and then move it back. And what I'm trying to do is I want to get it as close to where the blade's going to come down as possible. And so you can see as I screw it in, there's not any movement in it at all anymore. And then I put that on wrong. So you always want to look and make sure you put the sharp down first. And I see that it's a little bit too far away. Yes, you can use talcum powder if you want. That'll work as well. I just find the water's a little cleaner. You don't really have to dust off the powder or anything like that. So what I'm trying to do now is I want to bring that as close to the blade as possible so that I can get a clean first slice so that I can go forward. So what happens, what you want to do here is you want to turn it as many spaces as you want. So if you want a 1 millimeter slice, you're going to click, click. You want a 1.5, click, click, click. And as long as you do click, 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 you're going to get the same slice. One thing I have figured out though, using it, and you'll see why that didn't cut correctly, is you have to take in account, and Allison is going to know this from her Glowforge days, you have to take into consideration the kerf of the blade. So the blade is a certain size, which means you need to click the cane back until it touches the blade. Okay, so it's normally between 1 and 2 clicks that'll get you back, and that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm clicking it to get that cane back to the blade, and then I'm going to do my 1, 2, or my 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever I'm going to do in terms of thicknesses. And you can get a pretty thin slice with this consistently.
That looks great. And like all tools, you just have to learn how to use it a bit.
You just have to learn how to use it. I know Cynthia Tin Apple posted something about a week or 2 ago, and she said she was having some jittering with the blade, and her husband, Blair, just took the blade out and just filed down the teeniest, tiniest bit of the end of the blade and then put it back into the holder, and that worked. And I did the same thing, and you can't even really tell that there's a difference in taking some off of it, but it does seem to tighten it up just a little bit. And these blades are very stiff and very sharp. So what is the cost? The cost is $90 if you buy it from her right now today, but you're going to have a coupon.
Hold on. We're going to finish. We'll see.
We'll finish this.
I love
so
how
here I'm going to show.
Ready
they're
to
already,
buy.
what is it? Yeah. I was the exact same way when I saw it demonstrated the first time. So there you can go. You can see that you can get gradually thicker slices, and you could go as thick as you want. So there you go. It's $90 on her website with some pretty colors there.
And don't worry, the link is in your handout.
Yeah, it's in your handout.
But hold on, we want to show this as well. This was your class with making.
This was the class with making the canes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is perfect to also has this. Oh, we don't have the coupon. I'm sorry. Oh, poo-poo.
Oh no, what happened?
Wait.
Okay.
I don't know. But wait, we can say what it is. The promo code is what?
It is 5 sharp, I believe.
5 sharp. You're right.
And so it's $5 off the cost of the click a slice.
Right.
You get an extra blade. So now you have 2 extra blades other than the one that comes in the holder. And she's going to keep it valid through Cyber Monday, which is just crazy.
When is that?
That would be what? The Monday after Black Friday.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So there you go. Get a good deal.
Basically through November, pretty much. And I got to tell you, I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I love it.
And I know if you say that.
Yeah.
It's a worthwhile tool.
if not everybody, this isn't going to work for them. If you need really precise, big, sharp slices that are paper thin, you're going to have to spend more money. But for the majority of the people who don't do a lot of caning or do caning and don't want to spend or can't spend a lot of money on this, $85 is a fabulous price.
Yeah, for a great tool.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
Misty, can you put in the chat box there? Just pull it off the PDF, her website, and 5 sharp.
I believe it's
coupon code.
Click a slice is the clickaslice.com, and it's 5 sharp
for your coupon.
Right.
You know, it's hard to resist good tools, even if you're not making canes and polymer clay. But there's a good question there, right? Will it work with metal clay? I don't see why it would.
It would
metal
work with
clay
whatever.
Experts, what do you think?
I don't know what you would really need it for, because you're not really making anything that you need to get
right.
A
that's
slice.
what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, if you're using metal clay and you want to get something that's going to cut the same thing, I would go with the measure sticks, because
Yeah, I agree.
that will work with anything.
Yeah, I think that's a better
flat,
tool to use
round,
for that.
or square.
Yeah.
So, oh, good. Thank you, Sarah, for putting that in there.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Well, bravo. Thank you.
That's it.
We love that. We love a good new tool, and well done.
It's a woman-owned business, which
no
we
offense,
whoop whoop. No offense, Patrick. Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
And she's very technical, so she's constantly messing with it. Anytime she hears any number of
Right.
problems, she'll go in and she'll fix it. And then I think it's perfect right now. This is, I think, the third version that she had sent me, and this is the final version. And I think it works great.
Thank you, darling.
Welcome.
Love that. Love that, everyone. You have a new tool out there. All right, metal clay people. This is funny because Miss Julia Ray is going to show us how to create molds for metal clay. And guess what she's using?
Polymer.
And this is a great way to use polymer with metal clay as someone reminded you, we would call them armatures. Miss Julia Ray, take it away. We love that. And this is one of Julia's classes. And so she
She's
wanted to give a
muted.
little bit of wait, Julia's muted.
She's muted. Mhm.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. She's muted. I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you.
I was just saying, this is your class, which we love, and you're giving a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a bit of what's in that class for people who want to know how to make these kind of shapes with their metal clay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the title mold is slightly misleading because what we're using here, what we're doing here is actually making an armature to
That's
build.
what I just said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can build something onto an armature using polymer clay.
Right.
So this is the project from the class, and it's a hollow form. So there is a back on it, and it's a brooch. But it's built using snakes of metal clay. So all of these lines you see here, these are all individual snakes laid onto the surface of a form, a three-dimensional form. So this is just a really quick how you might create your own unique kind of shapes that you can build your metal clay pieces onto.
This
So,
is, let me say in this class, this is just a little preview of a little bit of the class. You got 2 hours and bonuses in this class that goes into everything to make it all. We just thought it'd be fun to share with people. Oh,
yeah.
this is what's going on.
So
Robin wants to know, fired or raw clay? Oh, good question to start with.
This is wet clay.
Okay.
So you're working when you're building this, you're working with wet clay. So you roll out your snake wet, you lay it over the form, and you let it dry on the form.
Okay. All right. We're going to watch a video.
Together, then you will fire it. Yeah.
Then you fire it. Okay. All right. We'll see a video here.
Okay. So I'm showing you my little tools here. So these are all polymer clay, and they're built onto a handle, which is a pencil. So you can see it's just a pencil with a rubber on the end. And they are odd shapes, but they have to have a flat back. So it's important when you're looking at these with polymer clay, when you make these shapes, you're making them the fronts of them. Okay, the backs need to be flat. You can't build this as an all-around thing because polymer clay will not burn out cleanly. Don't even go there. So what we're doing here is building them on the front. On the top, over the top side. So I've also got a couple of tiny ones here. These are smaller ones. These are on cocktail sticks. So anything can be a handle, but the handle's important because you're going to need to be able to pick these up as you are doing the build to make sure that everything is as it should be and get into all your little angles. So you can use any kind of polymer clay you like. But I prefer to use something that's a bit softer. So the softer one here, this Fimo Soft, is really it's useful. I mean, the others work fine, but the soft one just means you don't have to do quite so much work to get it to be squishy. Pencils, I buy loads of pencils with blunt ends, wooden cocktail sticks, but pretty much you can use anything you like as your handle. Whatever you've got is fine. So the project itself in the class, it uses a stone. It's got a stone set in it. So when you're designing for this kind of thing, having your stone ready is your starting point. You've got to have a flat platform for that stone somewhere on the design, because this is going to be a curved design, remember. So you need to have enough sort of space around that stone in order to then have that flat area where the stone's going to sit. So this is a kind of teardrop shaped stone. Doesn't matter what shape your stone is. You need to start from there really. So starting with the stone, you can then play around with your sort of, the outside shape that you want for your piece. But bearing in mind that it is actually going to be a curve, a sort of, a formed piece. It's going to be a three-dimensional form at the end of the day. But it's helpful to have that sort of outline first. So this is the outline for the project, and I've just drawn that and I've put where I think the stone might go, with enough space around it to be able to have that flat platform, and also a curvature at the edges of the form. And so that's going to be my basic template for the outline, and with the soft polymer clay, I'm going to start to build up the height and the width and that sort of thing. This soft clay doesn't need an awful lot of refinement or anything like that. It doesn't need to do too much messing around with it, but it's nice to make it a little bit warmer. So just rolling it in your hands and bending it and things like that, just warm it up a little bit so it's a little bit more malleable. And there are other projects in the class where we're using the same sort of methodology to build the piece onto. So I'm just going to build up the general sort of shape and size that I need. Again, with making that clay a little bit warmer, softer. But this soft one starts off quite nicely and soft.
I love the earrings you show in that class, Julia.
Yeah, they're fun as well. I just like the fact that with this you can have really unique shapes. You go completely bonkers with whatever shape you like. So I've got a piece now that is about the right kind of size and shape. But it's going to take a lot more messing around with, because the first thing you need to do is get the pencil in, and normally it's the thickest end, the widest end. You're going to get your handle, whatever handle you're going to use, whatever you're going to use for that handle, get that in there, and squish the polymer clay around it so that the handle's nice and firmly in there. You don't want it to be falling out when you've got a whole load of wet clay on the other side of the thing and you're picking it up to have a look at it, see how it's all fitting together. So take a bit of time over this bit. You could use a wooden dowel. You can use whatever you like. I just use a pencil because it's cheap. I can go down the road and just buy one. It's cheap. I can buy a whole load of them if I want to. So, but you can use anything you like. If you've got dowels, use dowels. Whatever. So I'm just adding now, because I put that pencil in. I've mashed around a little bit with the polymer clay. So I'm just putting a little bit of extra on there to just pad that out a bit. And this is the part where you're really going to start getting the shape the way you want it to be. Quite often I find with these things, the original shape that I decided on, I mess around with it a bit more. So I do a little bit more refinement on it. My designs tend to be a little bit different at the end of the game than they were at the beginning of the game. So I'm just thinking about making sure I get it wide enough, but also deep enough for the overall design of the thing, and just making it maybe slightly thinner at one end. But this is the fun part, really. This is the sort of the first part of having fun with this, is getting this this form the way you want it to be. And I can just mess around with that little nose bit at the end for forever. Could just play around with that, and just until I actually decide, yeah, that's I think that's the one. I think that's the one.
Yep.
I'll also need to look at where that stone is going to go, because you have to be mindful all the time. Where is that stone actually going to sit? Because that does need to be a flat area. You can't really put that onto a curved area. So it's gonna be a little bit different, I think, from my original design. But yeah, you can see me just messing around with it, putting little creases and things like that. This needs to go somewhere on here, and in my drawing I'd put it in on that sort of position at the end there. So I need to make that flat, because that's going to be the place where when I start working with metal clay, I'm going to put the platform first for where that stone is going to sit. And also we have to be mindful of shrinkage all the time with metal clay, obviously. So, you know, I've got to get a bezel around that. And this is actually a partial bezel that we use that I use in this class rather than a full all round bezel. So you need to have that space. You need to think about that space. So that's basically how you do it. Then you would bake it. So you can just hold here for a minute, Alison.
Mm-hmm.
So you would bake the form. The form needs to be baked, and the whole lot can go in there. You know, the pencil is not going to be bothered about being baked. Baked in the oven, depending on what the polymer clay you've used. Obviously, follow the manufacturer's instructions on that. And so here you can see I've got my flat platform where my stone is going to be. So that's the first most important thing to get sorted out here, really, is to get that flat on there. And then it's just built up with all of these snakes of clay, a bit of water in between each one, just to stick them in place. Now here you can see there are some gaps. So those little gaps, we fill those in later on. You could put little stones in there if you wanted to, or something like that. But the most important thing here really is that the snakes go down to the base, so where it's sitting down on the mat, but not underneath. Because if they go underneath, it's not going to release
I
cleanly.
think we're going to show that here.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it has to come up. It has to come off there really cleanly. But you can see here each side. So some of these sides go down a little bit underneath.
And turn.
Yeah. So you need to always be aware of how am I going to get this off the polymer clay. So you can see this is the underside. So some of these little snakes on this bottom side here, they're coming up over, but because you've got clearance on the other side, you should be able to just lift this out. But where you can see that one tail on the bottom right hand side just coming in, you're just going to slice those off. So those little ones there that are coming in, you're just going to cut those off with a craft knife so that you haven't got those messing up the whole thing. You don't want those to start wrenching off when you take out your polymer clay. So you just clean up around there, and then once it's off, then we build the back.
Yeah, that is very interesting there, how that all comes together.
Julie,
Voila.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a quick question.
Go
Was
for
the
it.
polymer clay baked before you
Yes.
put the metal clay on? Okay.
Yes. I always bake it first for these because you need to oil it. You know, you've got to add oil on it, and you want it to be firm and stick there. And that's why I've got all of these little, you know, little examples. Yet you get it off without the metal clay cracking by making sure that none of the snakes are going down too deeply underneath on all sides. You've got to think about being able to lift it off effectively, relatively easily. Sometimes you can let them go down a little bit underneath one side, but the other side needs to be completely clear, so you can just move that polymer clay up and out. If you find that it's sticking on there, I mean, use oil on your polymer clay before you start. But if you find that it's sticking in there, it's actually being held in there because you've gone too far underneath, then you just run a craft knife around anything around the edges that is holding it in there, so you can lift it off, and then you're going to tip it up and create the other side if you want to have a hollow form. Like this brooch is a hollow form, so on the other side there is a back to it with the brooch pin and everything on. With the earrings that I make in this, they just lifted straight off. So you know, we had the back and the front. You know, the back was just open. So both methods are shown in here. But the important thing is when you're planning it and when you're creating your armature, you need to have that flat back, and that's why I keep on saying, you know, you got to have that flat back.
Right.
Yeah. Nope, not at all. This one's done with coils. But you could certainly do this with you know, with slabs of clay. You can just lay clay over and tuck it around. Again, as long as you are slicing around the bottom, or you're making sure that you can lift it off afterwards, then it's fine.
Perfect. Leslie, in the end of the class, Misty, can you put the link for that particular class in? And also in the handout, we'll list all of Julia's class. It's an amazing class. I mean, learning to do the armatures and make those shapes and hollow is fascinating and great. So we will have all those listings coming in the box, no worries. And again, in the handout, you'll find everything. So that was the Genius of Ms. Julia Ray. Here's one more question.
No.
Did you fire it? What is it?
Yeah.
Did you fire with the stone in place?
No, no,
No.
no. That's a carnelian. It can't be fired. So that's why what you've got there is a bezel, and so we used we used something to stop the bezel from shrinking. So that's all in the class. But yeah, that the carnelian is set after firing.
Oh, cool. I will, let's see, Misty will put our handout in there and links to all those classes. Just keep checking the box. And if you scroll back, I think now you can look to see what's already been put in the box. They might have changed that on Zoom. So take a look at that. And anyone who's watching this afterwards, the handout is, if you buy it for free through craftcast.com, you get the handout and everything. So there you go. Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you, Julie. I forgot how great that is to watch and using that as an armature. Thank you.
And it's fun.
All right, coming up next. Oh, there's the class right there. Here we go. Unique dimensional forms in metal clay. There are the earrings I was talking about as well. They're very cool. So go ahead and take advantage of that coupon code that you have. Next, okay, so Pam right now, we can all wave to her. She's flying overhead. Yes, up there in the sky. So we pre-recorded this, so I'm going to run this, and you can put your questions in the chat box. I'll try to answer them if I can when we're done. Otherwise, we'll definitely get your answers for you, or someone here can probably help. But what happened is we did a class. It's the alternate bookmaking class that Pam did, which is genius. You'll see that in a sec, the class title. This was a little bonus. So we wanted to show everyone that there was more to do with the clasps than just a way to hold the journal closed. So this is what it's included also in the class, but take a listen to this. It's great.
In this bonus, I wanted to show you a simple book with a clasp. No fabric covering, no fancy cover decoration, just basic adding a strap and a clasp to a book to just elevate it a little bit. And you can do that. You don't have to do a fabric covering and you don't have to do fancy cover decorations. So what's the minimum that you're going to have to do to accomplish this? Well, you got to make a clasp, obviously. You're going to need to make the strap, and there is a separate bonus for how to make the strap. And the one other thing you are going to have to do is the decorative end papers. And the reason that you're going to have to install decorative end papers is because they hide the hardware. Here is a book I've started. You've got the anchor in place, but no end paper. And you can see these rivets in there. They're very rough. They're going to scrape up anything on the other side of them. So those need to be covered. And on the back side, I've cut the slot for the strap, and I've done the inset for the strap, and that needs to be covered. So you do have to do the decorative end papers in addition to the strap and the clasp. So let me show you now how to use the template without any modification. In the main program, I showed it how to modify it, but let me just show you how to use the template without modifying it. You always start off by oiling the stamp, and this is, I'm just using olive oil and I'm using a toothbrush to apply it. I want to keep it really thin. I don't want it pooling in the texture. Too much oil will break down your clay, so make sure that you just keep it a very thin coating. And on this piece of plastic, I'm even wiping most of it off. I don't want swaths of oil. I'm going to pre-roll the clay with a red slat. The red slats are 1.5 millimeters thick, and that is going to give me a nice flat piece of clay to roll onto the stamp. You always pre-roll to get the most crisp, clear image. If you want more information on rolling clay to an even thickness and using slats, how to correctly roll out clay, I do have a Metal Clay Fundamentals rolling clay video out there that you can watch. All right, so now I'm going to pick the portion of the stamp that I want to use for my clasp. And I'm going to be rolling this to 3/4 of a millimeter, and the green is 3/4 of a millimeter. Now, this is off the edge on the other side, so I'm creating a little platform there. So that's the same height of my stamp, and then putting the green slat on that so that both sides are the same height. Once I get that rolled out, I'm going to take it off the stamp, and I am going to let gravity be my friend here. I'm going to turn it upside down and let that clay fall out of the stamp. I never peel the clay out of the stamp. I always peel the stamp off the clay. That way you don't distort your image. All right, so here is my template, and I'm going to position that on the clay. And once I get it positioned where I want it, I'm going to hold it steady. And then I'm going to get a needle tool to cut it out. I'll start in the middle. I'll get that little middle section out. And then I'm going to use the outside edge, or excuse me, the inside edge. I'm doing the inside edge only. I don't need to do that outside edge. And then I am doing the little holes that mark where the rivets go. This leaves little bridges that are still connected. You'll need to go through and cut those so that you can get it out of the clay. And there you have it. You have cut out your clasp. And you'll use the other parts of the template to cut out the anchor. That is covered in the main program. You can go watch that there. And this should help you get started on how to do a basic clasp. Once you have the clasp completely dry, we're going to use these little sanders. I've got a 280 grit and a 400 grit. And I'm going to smooth the edges, especially where I had those bridges. It's probably going to be kind of rough. And I want to make it smooth and continuous all the way around. Hold it very close to where you are sanding. And then you can switch off to the finer grit. I'm just using a dry dusting brush there. And I'll pick up that, once I've gotten the real rough spots off, I go to the 400 grit, and I'm going to bevel those edges a little bit. And I'm just going to sand and smooth this. Go all the way around. Dust it off. That's nice. We're going to grab a little file that we can use to clean up the holes. We don't want to make those holes any bigger. We just want to make sure they're round, and they don't have any junk in them. And I can also use that file on that little inside hole to smooth that out as well. And once I get that done, I'm going to do a little, this is what I call water filing. Water filing means I take a sponge tip applicator. That is a disposable makeup applicator. And I use water to really smooth the edges. This is especially helpful on inside curves where you can't sand it very easily. So I can really smooth it out just by using water. Once I'm done with this, it will be ready to fire, and firing is covered in the first bonus. So go check that out over there.
All right, that looks totally fun. I want to make it now. That looks beautiful.
Yeah, I want you to take a really good look at these clasps because in a second, I'm going to show you something else that you can do.
I know, I'm very
with these
excited.
clasps other than make books. So that it's not a one thing. It can be a multiple thing, and it can be a very pretty thing. So
listen, that class you did will show again at the end where people purchase it is fabulous. And even the basic black one, it looks good too.
Yeah, it does. The big class is fun, but you don't have to take it that far. It can be fabulous just as just the clasp with the strap. And you can put that on any kind of a book.
Because here it
is. Here it is. So I can take that book clasp, and with a couple of small modifications, I can make this gorgeous bracelet. And so this is
gorgeous.
This is a stretch elastic. You can buy this elastic. It's this 1 inch brocade or jacquard elastic, and you're gonna measure it to your wrist, and you're going to take a match to the ends because it'll fray. And if you just take a match across those ends, it will melt it, and then it won't fray. But you're going to use those same little washers to attach the clasp to the bracelet, just like you did on the book strap. And you have to make one modification to the anchor. So there's one thing you have to do on the anchor, and that is you have to put the post off to one edge so that the anchor itself is hanging, is pointing back towards the bracelet. So you see that the anchor is right up at where it's cut, and the top of the anchor is pushing out over the bracelet itself. And that's the modification, because if it's centered, it's going to pull oddly when you wear it. But if it's not centered, if it's set up like this, then it's going to lay nice and flat on your wrist. And with those two modifications, you can turn this book, the book strap into a fun bracelet.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. There's another little sneak peek though about seeing this bracelet. Tell people about your next class while I show them these photos.
So the next class I'm doing is getting it's cell phone photography and getting great jewelry photography with nothing but your cell phone. No other well, you need some lighting equipment, but I'm moving away from the digital, the DSLR camera, because nowadays the cameras in cell phones have gotten so good. And there's a lot of tricks to making these photos look really good. And I have every trick for you. So this was a before picture.
That
this is
is
just taken.
before.
Yeah, this is taking a picture with my phone. I did take that with my phone. But without the proper lighting and without the proper setup. And if I just lay it on a white surface and snap a picture, this is kind of what I'm going to get.
Right.
And I have all the tips and tricks to get the lighting right, to get the setup right, so that you can get something like this. And so hopefully you will join me later this month, and we will be doing that whole photography class.
This is the class for your metal clay embellished altered book art, which we love, love, love. And then also coming up is, ta-da!
There it is, phone photography secrets revealed. And you can see some before and afters there on how I was able to take a kind of meh photo and turn it into a really good photo. So
Love it. Thank you for all your expertise and your tips, Miss Pam East.
And I will see you October 25th.
You guys, right? Wasn't that great? I mean, and thank you everyone putting in the links in, and it's in the handout. Yeah, great class making those books beautiful. That's just one little bonus of doing the simple clasp. And then, to do that as a bracelet, I thought was just great. Love it. What do you guys think?
Yay.
I love that elastic. That is just unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like this idea of repurposing something. You have this idea of the clasp and how do you use that clasp in a different way, just with a couple of small minor modifications.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah. And the fact that, I always like to, if you're making a book and then you think, or you make two, because you want to have a backup in case the first one doesn't work, and then you can use it for something else. So anyway, thank you very much to Miss Pam for doing all that. And the class coming up, her photography class, is genius. So you'll definitely sign up for that. Okay, I don't usually show something, but I'm showing something today. What is that product? I have just a quick little demonstration of little video of what I started using. People who know me know I'm a flower freak. I like making flowers in every material that I can find. So I decided to use some it's like a denim that I was using. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try to make a flower with all the files that we have from Mags's class, from our SVGs, our cutting files that we could use in our Silhouette, our Cricut, and the like. But the material has to be stiff enough to cut, because this is just, and you'll see in a second, it's just, material that just folds easily. So there we go. So there's the material. There's one of the flowers that I also made. I decided to also back the material. I was just using leftover material that I had, so that I could use up some things. I think that was left over from pillow backs or something that I made. So I had all these files to use, SVG files, to cut out. Here's one I thought, I actually put a magnet on the back of that one, and it's so I can use it on the refrigerator, also on a top of a candle container that I use, that I loved. So here's the material, and you can tell it's just, it is not stiff enough to cut in a cutting machine, that's for sure. And here's the material I used on the back, and I had to get them both together. So, yeah, so I thought, you can make this out of any of the material that you have around, and it's just prepping everything to get it right. So I treated the material, which was very easy to just paint it on. You'll see what I'm doing here. What I did was I also attached it to a hanger and then hung it on top of the shelf over my industrial sink. So when it was dripping and drying, it sort of just dripped there. So I sort of prepped it that way. And then I took the gluey material, shook it up. I think I used, I think I did 1 to 5 with the water. I didn't put it on straight. And I just took a sponge once it was all in there, and I just sponged it all on. And you can see it because the material, you can see, gets darker that it's going on. So easy to apply. And I just made sure I went over the whole thing. This was one of those lovely experiments that worked. Easy to put on, and then I hung this up to dry. Says don't forget to put newspaper under it or something, because it will drip off. So you want to make sure. And then I just put the 2 pieces of, now you can see how stiff it is. That's like an index card now. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Easy to put in our cutting machines now. And you can see I've already cut. These are some of the leftover pieces. And when I bend it, it doesn't wrinkle. And that's even a thinner cotton, and it got stiff enough to cut. And then I just glued the 2 together. Why? You didn't have to. I just wanted to have backs on the, I just thought it'd be pretty to have material on the back looking of the rose. All experimenting here. And so I got that all together, and then I was getting ready, and I put it, oh, here you can really see how stiff it is here. Practically stands up. Right? So it's a great one to use. So it can be cut in the curio.
Allison, did you use the regular blade, ratchet blade for that?
Did I use the regular?
The black, but
I cut it out of a Cricut Maker.
oh, okay.
And I used the one, I think that's the rotary one, so it turns and makes the curves.
Okay.
And I thought it came out great. It came out great. I couldn't have done it without that material. So I was joking around with everyone about what is the name of this material? Dun, 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 dun.
Ta-da!
Can you believe that's what they called it? Stiffy.
Tee-hee, tee-hee.
I was laughing with everyone. What meeting did they come up with that in? And then everyone says, well, you won't forget the name of that. And it's true. But I have to say, it works great. Now, I still didn't try. Oh, you've used it for years. Someone's right. We've used it for years to make ghosts out of cheesecloth. There you go.
Oh, that's
I
a
thought it
great
was
idea.
See?
There
I
you
love it.
go.
Leslie, see what's in the white bottle. That's it. Thank you for laughing, Tammy. Yeah, I had to laugh. I have not tried it yet. Cindy had asked me, does it wash out? So in other words, can you use it to cut on your machines and then wash it out so it's soft again? I didn't try that yet. I don't know. Maybe do you know the answer to that? Someone who just used it? Abby, do you know if you can wash it out? I don't think that's what it was made for,
Yeah, I
but
don't
who
think so.
knows? No, it doesn't wash out. There you go, Cindy. All right, Cindy, wait, let me unmute you. So there you go. But I have to say, I highly recommend it for what I used it for. It worked great. So if you want to make any of that material stiffer for some reason, it does the job. And you can just enjoy a little chuckle looking at the name. So there you go, made by Plaid. So I thought it was fun to show all you guys, and it's great for making flowers and cutting them out of your machine. So there you go, everyone. Enjoy your bottle of Stiffy. Of course, that leads right into Patrick, because he's always full of jokes and fun things, and you're not going to believe what he's going to show us. So put on your seatbelt, because Patrick, this is why I love playing with you. And as a little side note, Patrick and I are now hosting lives on Friday at noon Eastern time. And it's just great to play. Exactly. Where we play, give you ideas of how to play, a half hour of fun. So definitely look around for us on Instagram under my account. You'll find us
and
there.
I've got a couple of really cool things to talk about
next
time.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. You shouldn't allow the two of us together to do this, but it's fun. So join us. And the recording's out there too as well. So, but anyway, all right, Patrick, I'm going to play your movie here. You tell me if you ever need to stop.
Okay. So I was looking at YouTube, and you can probably stop at the very end of this one, actually. And I was trying to figure out this shot. I was looking at this guy thinking, wow, this is really cool, but how did this shot happen? And I thought maybe it was a drone, but maybe it was something else. I don't know. And you can kind of see, well, you can't go back, but there's the shadow that's on the
I think we
helmet.
see it again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that was the tell. And I thought, well, what the heck is this? Because clearly the shadow is saying one thing, but the visual that I'm seeing looks like there's no camera or no selfie stick or anything like that that's in the frame. So I went down this rabbit hole.
and look, there it is right there.
There it is.
Yeah. Now that when you'll see it, that's the stick that skier had, but it disappears. Now
he had it, but he had it and it was attached to his hat. His helmet. So this is a combination camera and invisible selfie stick. And the camera is actually a 360-degree camera. And so what happens is that since it has two different lenses, one on each side, the computer and AI stitch out the selfie stick so you don't see the selfie stick. So you have an invisible selfie stick, and you have a 360-degree image that you can edit. So go ahead and go on. So this is what it looks like.
Or you're a magician.
In real life.
Yeah.
Right. And then the result is what we're going to see next. So this is just me walking through my studio. Looks just like I have a camera operator, and you can keep your hand down and natural. And in this case, you don't see the shadow or anything like that. And what's cool about this is since it's taking a 360-degree image, you can actually do the editing afterwards. So it captures all of the information that's around you. And that's really cool because you're capturing things that you might not even be seeing or that is in your frame of reference. So this is a little bit different from your typical camera. That's my nephew's. Okay, and this is me in Napa Valley, and I'm like, okay, this is my Titanic moment. Yeah. And this is like no drone operator or anything. It's just like, it blew me away what the technology was able to do.
It's crazy.
And
Who's
this
driving?
is my husband's driving. As my feet are very long. But you can see how the angle changed from the front. Now you can see the selfie stick, the shadow, right? And so a typical camera, like your iPhone, stop please.
Mm-hmm.
A typical iPhone, you would hold up and you would point. So it's called a point and shoot. And then you would point at the subject, and this is what the result would be. And so go ahead next. A 360 camera, you can literally point it anywhere because it captures all of the information all the way around you. So you see, I'm not even looking at the disco ball in this case, I'm just sort of pointing it. The key is in the software. Afterwards, after you take the image, you can go ahead and forward.
Wait, just to be clear, because I know I had to look at this twice. Okay. That ball that we showed before, that JPEG, when I showed the disco ball, that came out of this shot.
The one prior? No.
The one
No.
prior to it.
The
Okay.
the one prior was a regular iPhone shot.
Okay.
And then now here's the setup before the shot.
Okay, got
and
it.
then the next one will show after.
Okay.
So this is the result that you get. And it's a 360-degree image that you can then go in the computer afterwards, and then you do the framing afterwards, right? So I can find whatever I want in my space, and then I look up and there's my disco ball.
Okay.
Right?
There's the picture. Okay.
So, it's cool because if you are in a landscape or something like that, you can actually take a picture of yourself and the landscape, and then without having to actually turn around and take another picture, you can capture that information and then, save it, and you can have all these individual images, or you can have video as well. Okay, next.
I mean, this is a lot for the brain to take in, but we got it.
Okay. So quick overview of the software. Since you're holding the selfie stick in your hand and you're walking and it's capturing the information, you're always going to be in frame. Whether you want to be in frame or not is up to you after you've taken the image. So you go into the software, it has an instant tracking feature, is what we're looking at here, and it'll automatically track my movements wherever I go and keep me in the frame every single time and keep me centered in the frame. And this is us. We were just sort of, at this architectural salvage place. Now, the software, there's two types. This is the desktop software. Because you're capturing that image, basically, you're going to go in and you're going to tell the computer what you want it to look like. And so you're putting these little yellow dots, and those are called keyframes. And basically, it changes the angle wherever you put the keyframe. And so you end up building the visual image by adding the keyframes, choosing your angle, and then hitting play. And then what happens is it goes through, and when it hits those keyframes, it'll change the direction, and it'll take that image of whatever you want the image to be in the frame. There's a couple of preset images, preset settings that are on here, and some of them are a little bit more special effects, like a fisheye, or the regular standard is preset, so it doesn't look like it's a fisheye. But you get all these different things that you could choose from. One of them is called Tiny Planet. There's Crystal Ball, and so at the end, when you add all this together, and then I go ahead and play it, what you'll see is this image of the place that I was at, and I'll go in, and then what'll happen is when it hits that yellow dot, you'll see that it'll sort of make a change, and the change is subtle, but it's really up to you. Now, if I wanted to look to my right, all I'd have to do is go in the software, turn the image to my right, and drop a keyframe there, and it'll capture everything on the right-hand side, right? And so as I'm going in, you can see, like, I changed the image here because I'm looking down as opposed to looking forward. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to zoom in on this and just get an interesting shot? And then you do zoom way out, and then you get the tiny planet, and you have these great special effects that are kind of cool. And this is all live video, so a lot of times you'll see birds and planes, and the clouds are moving. It's a lot of fun, and it's it gives you a unique perspective. The selfie stick, the invisible selfie stick, sold me. And then once I saw the software, I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool too. So this is the desktop software, and you can see all these round images are, just clips from, what I've taken. And what's cool about the software is that it has a preset effects. So this is the effects menu. And so depending on what effect you want to get, you'll choose one of these effects, and then like I'm going to do the shadow clone one here, and you click on it, and it gives you a step-by-step process on how to shoot it and how to edit it. And you're basically just going to follow those steps, and the end result is that you get something like this, which is a shadow clone. And so it shows all the different this whatever she's doing. And so I was able to clone myself because I recently injured my foot, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to clone myself? So I went around the studio, and I'm like, okay, this is sales and marketing, and this is the kiln, and then this is inventory over here, and so on and so forth. And so it was a fun little way to to add a little bit of excitement to a regular studio tour instead of just walking around with the studio tour. I still need to do that, but I just thought that this is a little bit of fun. And I've been doing a lot of, I've had a YouTube channel for so long, but I've really never really done anything with it. And now I'm actually starting to pay attention to it a little bit more and starting to put more stuff out. And so all this kind of, interesting things just keeps it a little bit more entertaining for me as well. There's
That's just
me.
so crazy. In the old days, how much editing and camera work would have been needed to do the cloning.
Right. Yeah. And here's the Matrix one. Okay. So remember the movie The Matrix?
Mhm.
That had probably about 300 cameras in a circle. This is actually the camera on a string, and I'm swinging it around, and I made this up. This are the special effects called Sky Swap. And this is that same footage that I showed you earlier. And you can see all the different things underwater, in space, all this really cool things that you can just do with, the push of a button. And the other thing was at the very end, I realized that, oh yeah, it is taking 360 degrees. Look at all this cool stuff that I missed, right? So I went back and I rewatched all the video and I pulled out certain things and I thought, okay, I'm going to snapshot this one, okay, because I really like that image right there. And then I didn't see there was a Buddha that was on the ground. I didn't see that when I was originally going through, so I was going to, sort of save that. And I ended up putting all of these into a mood board, and it's kind of fun because you end up with these images, where you've actually been to the place, but you don't know that you've captured these images, and then you're able to put them all together and make this story. And that sort of led me to this idea of, okay, how can I do this, for a class? And so the next class that I'm going to be teaching for CraftCast is on mood boards. Everybody's probably made a mood board, but then what? What criteria do you use to, evaluate and edit your mood board? And after you get that part done, what are the ways to make your vision happen the way that it needs to happen? And,
which is, what?
Way.
It's sort of old school, Patrick. We've just gone way into AI, and now you brought it back to how we started in the design world working with mood boards. We should just call them our comp boards, our scrap boards, our tear boards, and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's like coming back to what you need to think about actually.
Yeah. Intentional design. We like that.
That's a good word. Yeah. I mean, isn't that crazy? It's crazy.
It's wild.
Wild, right?
Yeah, it would be great for law enforcement, Robin. It's actually, realtors use this for virtual walkthroughs because their clients can, and so there's so many cool little fun effects that you can use. And, I was telling, during the rehearsal, we were talking about, yes, it's waterproof. So that's cool. It can go in the water without a case to a certain level. Once you go to a certain level, then you can, have to add a case to it. But because it's waterproof, I thought, well, maybe I can get a really cool shot of inside of the pickle pot where I'm putting something in the pickle pot and then it'll capture that. So what I ended up doing was, instead of putting it in the pickle pot, which I thought would be stupid because it would destroy the camera, I put it in a jar, a clear jar, put water in the jar, sealed it all up, and then put that in the pickle pot, and then made the shot that way by dunking it in there. So it was able to capture the whole thing. So, these things should be fun, and
I mean, yeah. It's
the invisible selfie stick. If it was anything except for the camera and the invisible selfie stick, I'd still buy it. You know, because this idea of not having it in the shot is fantastic.
Yeah. No, it's just the play and the fun is too much. So,
Can I
and
ask
that's
a
what we
quick
love.
question?
Yes, darling.
No, not for you.
No.
I'm next.
I'll get you later.
Yes.
Does it take a lot of processing power?
It's, how do I answer the question? It's available, the software is available on desktop, and you can make edits there and on your iPhone or iPad. So a lot of creators that are out there on YouTube will actually just do it right on their phone. I've taken it and I put it, I like to use my computer, my desktop. It's a little bit bigger. And plus I have all of my other still images from different cameras. So I end up using, like the last time I did a shoot was like, I ended up using 3 cameras, with the selfie stick thing being one of them. And then I had 2 different iPhones at different levels. So, but yeah, it can all be done on the iPhone. It's
Yeah,
super.
it's so
It's made for
sophisticated,
the
isn't
iPhone
it?
or
Is it-
Android.
Is
Amazing.
it a proprietary file saving or is it MP4 choice?
It's proprietary, but it's the 3D. I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit of research. What I do know about the file format, and I'm not a techie guy, so I'm just going to put that out there. If you can find all the information about how many megapixels and the batteries
we
and all
have.
that kind of stuff. That's all in the handout.
There
and,
is a,
you can find
I
it
was waiting for
online.
this. Here it is, Claudia. Go to, or Missy, put the link up there right away. We have a link where you get a little bit of a deal. There it is, with a free selfie stick or something. You can read all about it in there, and it's in the
Yeah.
handout.
It's a special bundle that we have together, and it's a little bit lower priced. Yes,
Right.
Mags.
So for what you showed us, is that just the X3 and the selfie stick and no other fancy additions
Correct.
to it?
Yep.
Perfect. And
Correct.
I assume it comes with the software.
Yes, it comes with the software.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the only thing I would probably buy is extra battery, because it will go through batteries. When I first started using it, I was on this kayaking trip and it's like, my concern was I'm going to run out of memory, because there's going to be the sea lions and all the other stuff that around Monterey, and that didn't happen. The memory was fine. I ran out of battery, and I was just kicking myself, because here I am in the middle of Monterey Bay. It's like, look at the seals, look at the but I was able to actually put it underwater during one point and capture the seaweed and capture a shot from underwater to the bottom of the kayak. And that was actually, kind of cool to be able to get that shot, and I didn't have to get wet.
We love it. We love it. It makes us want to play right away and come up with ideas. So that's the best. I say adult toys. Those are sort of the best. Well, Patrick, I know you're going to be doing more of that for us, and I look forward to your class coming up. I think it's always great. We sort of hint our way into design, creative thinking, and play. Patrick likes to take that direction, and I follow right along behind him, skipping along as he goes.
A creative troublemaker.
Exactly. We love that. So thank you, hon. That was really good. That was like watching a good TV show or something. So thank you. All right, next, Miss Cindy Pope. Here's what I wrote, because with Cindy, we always say, what's Cindy up to now? So
what is she doing now?
Yeah, what is she doing now? So Cindy came up with something. All right, I'm gonna let you talk, Cindy, because you know exactly what you want to say here. I just went and said, oh, that looks so good. I love that. So take it away, darling.
Well, thank you. I was in Michigan for about 3.5 weeks. And of course, I got bored because I didn't have all my stuff. So I went to Michael's and just went around the aisles and found things. So I got myself some paper clay, some Sculpey tools, some ball, just things to play with textures. And I came up with a really interesting way to create a beaded edge on your metal clay. And this is a mold. And so I'm going to show you how I did it. And so what I did is I got this cheap beaded chain, which I cut, but I went in my chain inventory and got lots of interesting little chains, and they're metal, either steel or silver. And I just, looped them over and didn't cut them. And so I got all these different textures, and you can make a beaded edge with any of your templates. And this is one of my new templates at Cool Tools. It's a graduated template, so you can use it with lots of different projects.
It's such a good idea to use your chains.
And you must have Silly Putty to test your molds. Unless they're silicone molds, then Silly Putty will stick to them, and that will be, it'll make you cry.
Ooh.
Very
yeah, so
pretty.
it'll show you also how to do this little flower in my class. So I was kind of preparing for a class for me as playing. So basically, play is how you discover things. So it was really awesome for me not to have my computer, not to have anything that I would normally have. That kind of like expanded my thinking.
That's a good exercise.
It really is.
Yeah. And those, you just made those out of the paper clay is what you're saying, right?
This is paper clay, and paper clay, you know, I used it years ago. And so this is the rope chain, which I think turned out
That's
pretty
pretty.
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you how I did the 2mm chain, and it's a pretty high, you know, 2mm is 8 cards. So you need a lot of clay to get into that mold. And we'll talk a little bit later about rolling when you have a deep mold. So I'm going to use one of my kite shape template. And what I do is I just choose a template size that is a little bit bigger than I want my piece to be. I'm kind of into little earrings. So
I love how we go back and forth. I'm into little, I'm into big. I'm back to little.
well, as long as they're lightweight, I'm okay. I'm cool with big too. But so I'm taking a 6 card and an 8 card, and this is the Cool Tools rolling set, and I'm rolling the paper clay. Now the paper clay is a little dirty because I took it on vacation. I was at the beach and I was doing rocks and I was doing a lot of different things. But it really dries like a dream, and it's pretty sturdy, and it carves beautifully too. So I'm in my class, I use this for a couple of the projects, and it's really, really, really fun.
And you can get it at Michael's and use your coupons that you can just download before you walk in.
Or I'll have a kit for my class in Cool Tools, and they'll
okay,
include
good.
some
Okay. Upcoming class. We don't have that link for you just yet.
Very soon. I just have to make this project, some projects in silver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll down to 5, because what I like to do with my templates, and this is kind of a weird thing, but I'm sure there's a scientific reason, but if you roll it on clay and roll down, it's going to rise up, and you have it almost domes, just a very slight dome. So I want the bead to be right up at the edge. And then we fast forward through here because as I complained in every class, it's really hard to do finicky things when you're filming. Normally my little nose would be right down there in the project. So I'm just placing the bead around, and I'm not pressing it down until I have it placed properly. And when I did this without the camera, it didn't take me much time at all.
Wait a minute, Julia, what do we call finicky like this? What's your word?
Finagling.
And there's another,
Finagling, yes.
yeah,
Finagling this little chain. And finally I gave up and I get myself some tweezers and finagle with that too. But it's really pretty easy to do. You just don't want to press down until you've got it in.
That's the kind of thing that sometimes it's very easy and sometimes it's not, and certainly not when you're on camera.
No, when you're on camera, everything's harder.
Yeah.
And so the only thing you want to be really sure before you press it down is you want to make sure the bead is inside the border of that template. Now I'm not getting the sharp edges, which I kind of like in the template, because it's a bead, it's going to curve. But I just love the idea of being easily able to add this detail to any earring.
Yeah, great. Fiddly, that's the word I was thinking of, Julia.
Yes. I was supposed to be packing. I'm on a little vacation. I was supposed to be packing on vacation. I was making some earrings with one of the other molds. I'll post them on Facebook. Yeah, so I pushed it down with a tile, and now I'm pressing it all around, and then I'm going to give it a quick roll. And then we're gonna cut it with my circle cutters and dry it.
I forget the name of that paper clay, but it's the one in Michael's in the black and white sort of.
Yes, there's so many clays, and I tried a few, and it's so funny because I had an old package of paper clay from like 10 years ago. I think we used to use it for burnouts and with silver, but and then I'm just gonna carefully pick it up because I don't want to mess with my. And look at.
Cute.
And now I'm sanding up to the edge. Now with paper clay, it sands really nicely. So I could even out if I wanted my piece to go past the edge and have the bead kind of inset a little bit more. But normally I'm going to go have that bead right at the edge. So but you could, once you dry, a lot of my metal clay too, I don't fuss with it until it's dry. So it's fully dried, and I sanded it a little bit. And I'm using something called a new thing I found at Michael's because it's a dangerous place to go. It's Mod Podge spray, and it's a little thinner. And so the first couple, before I went to Michael's and got in trouble again, the first couple, I just cut my Mod Podge with water, because the thing is, when you have an inset like this, you do not want the Mod Podge pooling. And this stuff doesn't stick. You probably could go without sealing it, but I kind of like having that nice smooth surface that's waterproof. And all my, you know, a lot of my clays aren't very sticky. That I used all the clays, but some clays are a little stickier. So you don't want it really sticking. You want a nice smooth roll. And so I just go back in and make sure nothing's pooling inside my bead.
So you've sort of finished off with a surface on your paper clay, basically.
Yeah, the first couple I did, I didn't, and then I just decided to grab some Mod Podge. So now I'm going to show you how to make the actual earring. And we're remembering the bead is 8 cards. So what yes, 8 cards. So I started with 6, and 6 was not deep enough. So I'm going to start with 8 cards, and any deep mold or, you know, nail art molds, this is kind of how you do it. You start with a lot more clay than you need, and then you roll down. With nail art molds, those little tiny fishes and things, I roll it into a ball and push it in. So this is a similar thing. I'm going to roll down to 3 cards, but I need the clay in order to go into my mold. And I like to oil the surface because, again, I don't want the oil pooling inside. So the first thing, whenever you roll a texture, you start out with the height of your texture. And then you're going to put a card on to see what you want to roll down to. So I want my final project to be 3 cards. They're earrings, and I like my earrings light. And sometimes I'll go a little thicker and sand off the back if I'm having a hard time getting my image how I want it. So I roll down one way and back up. And then if it doesn't look good, then you get to roll again a little bit. So you want it smooth on the back. And then I press down, and I do this with my regular textures too. Like some regular textures, when you roll, it's gonna be lighter in a certain part. It might be how you roll. But I do kind of give them a press to make sure I get a really good impression. And I think it's improved my impressions a lot. And like Pam, I'm going to let the clay fall away. And there we go.
That's a really good impression.
Yeah, so with the 1 millimeter bead, you wouldn't need to start with 8 cards. You would start probably 6 or 5. And I'm showing you how I shouldn't do it to start with. When you're cutting with a scalpel, don't follow my own rules. It's really hard to keep moving your wrist. And so what I recommend is holding your wrist supported against the surface and moving the tile. And I always cut on a tile. It's really a lovely surface to cut on. And if you cut on your silicone mat or your work surface, you're going to cut through it and it won't be a smooth surface anymore. And I roll on a tile in silicone. I think I get a really nice surface with that. So I'm just going to pull it aside, and I like a little curve. And when you put things on a curved surface, pay attention, because if you're heating them, sometimes you just have to kind of babysit a little bit, because occasionally it'll get cattywonk, which happened with my last project. So I kind of watched this one. And you don't have to cut it perfectly. A lot of people really futz with their wet clay. And one time I was in a class with Juana Tanner, and she said, Cindy, dry it, and then you can make it beautiful. So I think dry refining. So I really clean up the edge when I dried this one.
Cindy, what did you form that on?
It was just like a little glass cabochon from Etsy.
Cool.
Oh, so now we're going to talk about my new class. This is a carving and molding class, and I was sketching on vacation. Couple of my artist friends convinced me about 10 years ago to start drawing. And so I wanted to make a piece that looks like my drawing without having to do lots and lots of layers, because layers add a lot of time to construction. So part of my little play was doing this. So this is the final mold that I'm going to use. And you can see I've carved into it. So it's partially molded. I've carved the paper clay if I want things sticking up. And then there's some first steps also. And so you get this really multifaceted piece without having to do it in metal clay, because if it screws up in a mold, it's fine. If I start putting layers on something and then layer number 3, I've screwed it up, it's a little distressing. And I also carve afterwards. So I did this carving afterwards. And I did the carving. I like to embellish my back. So I'm going to show you also how to aqua carve, which is really, really fun, to create a maker's mark. And I'll do this one in silver, I think, with and how to do that bail. I really like that pinch bail. And here's one we're going to do a dry construction. We're going to start with dry circles, and then we're going to drill through them and layer them. I love to do that. And so here's my final piece using some software that I think Pam is going to share with you.
Yes. I mean, look how beautiful that worked. I love that. Okay, that's all great. There's a good question in here. How long can you use those paper clay molds, Cindy?
You know, I've just started doing them.
So we don't know yet. Okay.
But they seem very
pretty
sturdy.
Stable. Yeah.
I tried some other clays and I don't think they carved as nicely. This reminds me, like, if you had a metal clay that was really, really easy to carve, all your techniques that you use with carving metal clay are going to work with this. It's a really interesting product. Plus, it's cheaper than silicone. And I can't test my silicone molds with Silly Putty because they stick to one another permanently. And so I'm really enamored with this. I have bags and bags full of molds. And you could just do a texture plate. Like, I took some stones and I rubbed them into paper clay, and it's really, really fun.
Great.
And I'm also going to do a little sea urchin to be one of the other projects.
And it's a great testament to play. Like you said, you didn't have any supplies. You went into Michael's, you bought paper clay, and look at what you came up with. A whole new class idea. Bravo, applause.
Thank you. It was I've been having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It's pretty cool. And it's such a great time saver, because I'm looking at this image and I'm thinking, okay, if those were all individual images, you'd have to roll every single ball. You'd have to create all the different layers, and you've done it in a, just it's made it look easy.
And joining can be tricky.
Definitely.
You can mar the surface of your clay. I mean, I'm a pretty good joiner, but some clays join better than others. It was just very, very interesting.
Plus, metal clay, the paper clay, it's a big brick that you get, and it's not expensive, especially if you use your coupon code. And so you don't have to feel like nervous that you're wasting anything. And you can just say, if I don't like it, you don't have to use that one. You can just start again.
Yeah, with silicone, if you don't like it, you've thrown away a big chunk of money.
Yeah.
Cindy, have you tried drying them like a piece of the paper clay and then attaching a raw piece to that so that you don't distort anything?
Well, there's a process before I get to the paper clay.
Yeah.
So what I'm putting
Okay.
on the original, it doesn't get distorted. But I have not joined pieces, but I have created slip with it. And so I would think it would work similarly. And I haven't tried cutting it in my silhouette, but I probably should try that too.
Yeah.
And this is similar to a project I did in my boot camp silhouette class, and I just love the organic look of it. And I love that I drew it first. And so I really wanted to do this without a silhouette. And of course, there'll be some kind of silhouette bonus, because I always have to.
So everyone, stay tuned. Her
crowd.
class is not listed yet. Make sure you're on the mailing list for CraftCast so that you see it on Cindy's list, so you get all the information. And I'm in love with the chain look around the edge. That's one of my favorite looks for sure. I love that you did that with paper clay. Oh, see what I mean? Why I said, what's Cindy up to now? It's the perfect intro for you, my dear. It's how it goes. Thank you so much for that. We love it. And we look forward to your class.
Thank you for enabling me. I really appreciate it, Allison.
That's me.
Haven't
Miss
we all said
Enabler.
that to her at one point?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
it'll be on my shirt, enabler. All right, so
Craft
Miss,
enabler.
yes, craft enabler, don't go near her. So Ms. Sean Hamilton, who has also genius classes over at craftcast.com, I said to Sean, didn't I say something like, I love big chains? And you got interested right away because you had been working on something. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm so excited because I love big chains. And then I said to Sean, I think I even sent it to her when she's on vacation. Look at this Tiffany email I got. Guess what they're pushing that's in this fall? Big chains. So
Yeah.
there you go. So Sean has taken on, this will be her upcoming class, but take a look at this. Sean, tell us about these chains and what you're working on.
Yes, so I am working on, it's kind of an introduction to chain. So we're going to start with the simplest, which obviously is this one. So it's about texturing your chains, cutting your links, and putting them all together. So the chains are actually made before you fire them. So they are all fired. You don't do any of this after it's fired. So we work on the chains and put them all together before firing. So there are some tips and tricks to
Oh,
how
yes.
to do this successfully, so you don't get something out of the kiln or off after torch firing that you then can't wear. So that's the same piece. It's got two different textures on each side. I quite like combining my really different textures. So one is just this dot, and then the other is kind of a more fluid texture. And I am going to go through making the toggles as well that go with these big chains. That's the easiest way to connect a big chain. And I'm going to teach in the class how to do the toggle, because toggles obviously have to be a certain length to be able to hold in place so you can wear something successfully. So I will be covering all of that as well.
Which if I had done this and made all the chains and then put in the kiln, I just have a big pile of melted silver at the end is all I'm saying. I would not have chains.
It makes people nervous when I talk about the fact that these do go into the kiln all linked together, and I promise you they come out as chain.
I trust you.
Yeah. So I love shapes and not just round. So I decided I was going to make a hexagon chain, and this is just showing a little bit of the process of how I go about making the links. You have got to have a little bit of patience, because this is quite a repetitive process. And yeah, I sit with an audiobook, bit of an audiobook fan. So I sit listening to an audiobook and making my links.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time for doing repetitive and there's a time not to do repetitive. That's for sure true.
True. Yeah, but it's quite meditative as well. So this is the hexagon link chain. It came out really nicely. I was really pleased with this.
Wow. It's
I
beautiful.
made a slightly more decorative toggle as well for this chain.
And Robin Beth, you have to come to the class. That's she goes into how to do all of that, so you'll learn.
How much clay is that?
It's actually not a lot, Patrick. I was working out that this one, to get a 16-inch chain, I had to make 19 inches, and it worked out at 0.8 of a gram per link. So
Wow.
relative, I mean, you know, there's cost involved, and I made the samples out of silver, but in fact, one of the chains that I'm making for the class is in copper clay. So I'm going to go through the process, because obviously it's slightly different when you're firing base metal clays, but I'm going to cover chain making in base metal clay, because I want to show how you can use this process and not have to use a whole ton of silver clay as well.
Love it. And this was my favorite shape that you did. Sort of traditional, I guess you would say.
Yeah. So yes. So this is a little bit more advanced than the classic chain I'm going to show how to make. But in the class, we are going to cover how to kind of dive into slightly more complex chain links and how to put them all together. And I add in the little kind of bar link that you can see it on the left-hand side. I actually make formers for myself, really simple formers, so I can make multiple of these links that are all identical. So I'm going to go into how I make the formers as well. So you'll have,
which is
all of
great.
my
You'll see what she does. Another good
information.
tool
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
idea as well. All right, so here's a little video to finish us off with a little glitter on our wrist.
Yes, so this is that first chain, just to show you how it looks and how it goes together. And I do wear this all the time. It's a nice piece to wear.
And I mean, you could make it longer and wear it as a neck piece. You could do
Yeah,
you could do lots of different things with it.
yeah, absolutely. And one of the chains that I'll be showing has graduated links. So those are all obviously the same size.
Oh,
but
right, the
I'm
graduated link. I love
talking
that
through,
too.
yeah, the graduated chain links. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely a chain addict. Gorgeous. So that's a class
Cool.
coming up.
Yeah.
What kind of clay? Laura just asking what kind of clay are you using for that?
This is 999. This is art clay.
Okay, there you go. And I know you said you could use metal clay, but it's a little more fragile. They break easier. Did you say that, or am I dreaming, Sean? Do you
It
recommend?
depends. No, most of the silver clays are fine. I was telling you because I've been playing with some of the bronze clays.
Yeah, right,
I
the
love
bronze.
the gold colors. There's a couple of the bronze brands that I'm struggling a bit with them not behaving. But hopefully by the time I've got the class done, I am going to
You will
have that
figure it out
sorted.
for us.
I will figure it out, I promise.
This is what I want to say about every one of these teachers. They figure out all the things so that we don't have to struggle through them. And we bow down to all of you for doing that because they work it through. I get the text when things aren't working, and then I get the text when, and it worked. So we really appreciate that. All of you do that and put out that way. It's really lovely. So, oh, Julie just wanted to know, can you torch fire links?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
you can.
Okay.
I do. There's a slightly different process to torch firing to kiln firing, and I will cover both in the class.
Okay. You guys, we did it. Dun, 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 dun. Pre-chained. We have done it. Another I love tools. And boy, do we love our tools and our shiny and our clay and our classes. There's your coupon code again. And any questions, just send them to support@craftcast.com. Robin, Beth, I love this group. I know I love them too. We know how to have a good time. Any pictures anything you make, even from the I Love Tools that you want to show us, oh, look what you did. I made this. I love that. Let us know. But again, any questions, just come send us an email at support@craftcast.com and we will take care of it. And I want to bow down to the teachers who come on. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. Make me cry. And all of you who come on and support Craftcast. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It's so much
you.
fun to have you all. So thank you. All of you have a great day. Thank you all, my little lovelies. I will see you all soon. And I'm sure there'll be questions. And thank you again for sharing all your genius.
Bye,
Bye-bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a great
Thanks for
weekend,
coming.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.